Bama, Kentucky, I think will be pretty similar here.
Bama or Kentucky's plus 10.5 at home. This one's at 12 p.m. on ESPN. Total 48. Was this line surprising to you at all?
Yes. It very surprising. I would and maybe it shouldn't be. I think it makes sense. And 10 points, I would be happy with a 10-point win. I was kind of surprised it was that low. Now, here's the thing. I was going to try to do a deep dive on all the times that Bama has come after the LSU game and had a situation where it's like, well, they played, like last year, coming off the loss against LSU, they played an Ole Miss team and they were an 11.5-point favorite, 11-point favorite, and it's a close game that comes down the wire. They only win by 6. Off the top of my head, you think about 2012, coming off an emotional win against LSU. Your next week, you played at home against A&M, and that was the Johnny Manziel game. I don't know if that's what's going to happen. The 10 points is kind of terrifying for me because they're begging you. Vegas is begging you to take Bama to beat a Kentucky team that, quite frankly, lost by 38 to UGA, right? Has not looked great. I'll stay away from this game from a betting standpoint, right? But I think here's the thing. If you're talking about a path for Kentucky to win, there could be a path. I've been very low on Kentucky for quite some time. The path is, okay, you need Devin Leary to be Steven Garcia and have a 17 out of 20 for 200-something plus yards, no turnovers, all that kind of stuff, and that be how your quarterback performance is. You also need, I think, one of these, or probably both, if we're being honest. Every single time, if this is compared to the Manziel game, if Bama's down even double digits in the first half, as a Bama fan, you kind of have to feel still pretty confident that you're able to come back, because every single second half against good opponents in this little run they're on, they've been able to put the clamps down on defense, and they've made halftime adjustments, and they have dominated the second half. They did it against LSU. They did it against Ole Miss. They damn sure did it against Tennessee. If you're telling me that Kentucky's going to win this game, I'm thinking you're going to need something in special teams and or two being +2 in the turnover margin, and you need all that to happen in the second 30 minutes of this game. You need Bama to be in situations like, oh my God, we had a pick 6 or a pick way in our own side of the field. That's what it's going to take.
I look at, so Bama's 38 all time versus Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue, dating back to Kentucky's bowl game last year, All
right, I've lost you.
So I think dating back to the bowl game last year, Kentucky hasn't beat anyone worth a shit on their schedule. They're 6-4 in their last 10. Their losses are to Georgia, 51-13, Iowa in a bowl game, 21-0. Or did they beat Iowa 21-0? Anyways,
it doesn't matter.
Mizzou at home, 38-21. Tennessee at home, 33-27. So those are the teams that they've played that they lost to. Here are their wins in the last 10. Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron, Vandy, Mississippi State, and Florida, which we now know the Florida win, not so great. Kentucky hasn't scored in double digits against Alabama since Obama was freshly minted the president of the United States.
Love it.
I think Bama's going to roll. I think they're starting to open up on offense. Jalen Milroe gets better every week.
Yeah.
Some of that last week, admittedly, is because LSU's defense is horrific, but I also think Bama's starting to click at the right time. I'm laying the points. Bama 35, Kentucky 13.
Okay, so I'm scared again of what this could be. And sorry for the technical difficulties, y'all. I should have never tried to do that segment without planning it beforehand. That was a bad idea. It's all on me. But no, so I think the points scare me because Vegas is rarely wrong. But I will also tell you this, Tyler. Has Vegas been super right this year about Alabama? 6.5 against Ole Miss, you win by 14. 3.5 at home against LSU, you win by 14. You were a touchdown favorite at home against Texas. You lost by 10. Like, it's not like they've been super great. With like that A&M game, didn't it trickle down to 1, and they won by 14.
I can't remember. You're better at remembering stuff like that.
So, like, I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. I know it was right around game time. It was around 2 because I started to panic a lot. I think Vegas is right a lot, but they haven't been super accurate about Alabama this year, and I'll say that. And I hope I'm wrong about this, but I just have a hard time looking at Kentucky ever and thinking, you know what, that team's Devin Leary's going to come out for 60 minutes and play like on fire. Like we've seen in the past where, last year against Georgia, they held them to 16-6. Maybe it's some super ugly win like that, but let me give you a stat. Mark Stoops against top 10 opponents while he's been at Kentucky. He is 1-17 versus top 10 teams in 18 career games as the head coach at Kentucky. In those 18 games, they have an average margin of loss of 24.5 points per game. Not only is he losing to top 10 teams, but in those 17 losses, they've lost by an average of 24.5 points per game. In the last 10 games he's had against top 10 opponents, he's 1-9. They beat Florida once, right? But he's 1-9 overall. They scored over 14 points just once in those 10 games. Over 14. He was held under 10 points or less in those 10 games 6 times. And the average margin of loss in those 9 losses in his last 10 games, 26.1 points per game with an average score of 31.5 to 8.7. You just can't convince me that all of a sudden Kentucky, with the number, and I think the stat you might have thrown out is probably even more important. You just can't convince me that Kentucky's going to come out and do anything to this Alabama team. I will be as bland as possible. On the road, maybe it's a scary game. I don't know. I'll say Bama wins 24-13.
I'd be surprised if it was that close.